Narrated by Mr. Anansi, the gods of assumption. Prologue, the spinner of stories. Now listen close, child. Listen like your future depends on it, because it does. You see, stories are sticky things. They crawl into your ears, nest in your heart, and before you know it, you're living inside them. And the most dangerous stories, the ones you should really fear, are the ones you tell yourself without even realizing it. My name? Call me Anansi. Old god, old trickster, old weaver of the web. I deal in stories, always have. They're stronger than money, stronger than kings, stronger even than gods. Because gods? We're just stories that humans told so well, they forgot they made us up. Now, you're here because you want to know the secret, aren't you? The secret to bending life to your will. The secret to not being a puppet on someone else's stage. I'll tell you, it's not gold, it's not war, it's not even prayer. It's assumption. You assume you become. You assume the world tilts to meet you. You assume and all the heavy chains of fate fall off like mist at sunrise. But like any good story, this secret isn't given. It's earned. So settle in. Let me tell you 3 tales, and maybe a 4th if you listen sharp. Part 1. The Weaver's Bargain. You ever hear the saying, "You are the thread you spin"? No? That's all right. It's an old saying from a time when people actually listened. There was once a boy, though calling him a boy is generous, a man bent low by the weight of years he hadn't lived right. His name was Jonas, and he carried more doubt than dreams in his pack. Now Jonas had been chasing fortune the usual way, begging strangers to open doors, waiting for life to see him, knocking and knocking until his knuckles bled. But nothing much came of it, because Jonas made one fatal mistake. He assumed he was powerless, and the world, being the polite mirror it is, simply agreed. One day, after yet another failure, Jonas found himself wandering the cracked spine of forgotten America. The map in his hands tore itself apart in the wind, as if the very earth was telling him, "Wrong way, boy." And yet he stumbled into a place that didn't exist on any map, a valley veiled in mist and silence, a place where time forgot to move. At its center sat a crooked hut, smoke trailing from its chimney like a lazy snake. And inside, hunched over a loom that seemed stitched from starlight itself, sat Salan, the weaver. Salan was the kind of old you couldn't measure in years. His face was lined like a riverbed after a drought, and his eyes... his eyes were a pair of cold stars. Jonas, desperate and trembling, dropped to his knees. "I seek success," he said. "I seek fortune, purpose, meaning. Can you help me?" Salan didn't look up. He just kept weaving, the golden threads whispering secrets in a language no mortal tongue could speak. Finally, Salan said, "Help yourself." He gestured, not unkindly, to a second loom. It sat unused in the corner, dust swirling around it like ghosts. "This," said Salan, "is the loom of assumptions. Whatever you thread into it, life will mirror." Jonas blinked. "Thread what? Not your fears, not your wishes, your assumptions? What you decide is true for you, even if no evidence yet agrees." "And if I weave wrong?" Salan shrugged. "The loom doesn't care, the loom only obeys." Now, Jonas was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. He understood the gamble. He understood it better than he admitted. Still, what choice did he have? He picked up the spindle. He sat before the loom, and he spun. At first, Jonas spun from the oldest fibers in his heart. "I am cursed. I am invisible. The world is against me." And oh child, the loom responded quick. Threads snapped, colors faded. Outside the valley, reality bent darker. Strangers turned cold, opportunities rotted before blooming. The ground seemed to suck at his boots when he walked. But Salan said nothing. He just let the boy fail. That's another lesson, by the way. Sometimes gods love you best by letting you fall. It took days, maybe weeks, for Jonas to grow tired of his own misery. One night he stared at the black, fraying mess he had woven and realized, if I can assume doom and make it real, why not assume something else? Tentatively, like a man testing a frozen river with bare toes, he spun new threads. I am remembered. I am fortunate. I am chosen. The threads shimmered golden. The loom purred like a pleased cat. And out in the world beyond the valley, things began to shift. A stranger offered him water without being asked. A lost opportunity returned with a second chance. Someone smiled at him, really smiled, like they saw something important he hadn't yet become. But child, change is never a clean thing. It is a bloody birth. It demands sacrifice. Jonas had to kill the part of himself that clung to doubt like a tattered coat. He had to choose, again and again, to trust his new assumptions, even when the world seemed slow to catch up. Assume first, witness second, never the other way around. One evening, after many trials, the loom fell silent. Ceylon stood. He clapped Jonas on the back. A heavy, solid sound like thunder finding its voice. "You've learned the only truth that matters," Ceylon said. "Reality is not your master. It is your reflection." Jonas left the valley with nothing but the clothes on his back, and everything he needed to conquer any road. Because the loom? He carried it inside him now. Anansi chuckles. "You catching the thread yet, child? Good, hold on to it." The next tale tangles even deeper. Part 2, Bilquis and the Mirror of Becoming. Now listen sharp, child, because not all webs are spun by spider silk. Some are spun from how you see yourself. And those are the stickiest traps of all. Far from the valley of looms and old weavers, in a city that pulsed with dying neon and broken promises, there lived a girl named Amira. She was a mirror maker. Not a famous one, no. No golden signs, no glossy shops, just a cracked stall in a crumbling marketplace where forgotten souls bartered for forgotten things. Amira crafted her mirrors by hand with frames of twisted copper and glass so polished it caught more than reflections. It caught the truth. But there was a curse in her craft. Though others saw their beauty in her mirrors, Amira only saw her own smallness. She assumed she was invisible, and so she was. Day after day, she sold to customers who barely noticed her. She smiled polite smiles and spoke in polite whispers, while inside her heart a quiet rage built, the kind that crumbles empires from the inside. One rainy evening, the kind where the sky forgets how to be anything but gray, Amira sat alone at her stall, her mirrors catching nothing but raindrops. That's when Bilquis came. Not in her ancient glory, mind you. Not wreathed in gold and incense as she once had been when kings and conquerors trembled at her feet. No, she came dressed like the city itself, a sleek coat, lips the color of secrets, and eyes deep enough to drown in. She approached Amira's table, her steps making no sound. "These are beautiful," Bilquis said, tracing a finger along the edge of a mirror. Amira bowed her head. "Thank you," she murmured. Bilquis smiled, and the rain outside seemed to pause, holding its breath. "But why?" she asked, voice smooth as river stones. "Do you sell reflections you don't believe in yourself?" Amira blinked, startled. I don't know what you mean." Bilquis tilted her head. "You make mirrors, child. But you've trapped yourself in a mirror made of your own small assumptions. You assume you're unseen, and so the world obliges." Amira lowered her gaze. "I'm just not important." Bilquis leaned closer, her perfume a memory of flowers that only bloom in moonlight. "Assume yourself a queen," she whispered, "and watch how the world changes to match." Amira shook her head, fear rising like cold water in her lungs. "I can't just pretend." Bilquis laughed, not cruelly, but with the joy of a teacher seeing a pupil stumble on the threshold of discovery. "Child, it's not pretending. It's deciding. The gods are born when belief outweighs doubt." She tapped one mirror with a single painted nail. "The first worship," she said, "must be directed at yourself." And then, just like that, Bilquis was gone, leaving behind only the scent of impossible flowers and the lingering warmth of possibility. That night, Amira couldn't sleep. Bilquis's words echoed inside her like a heartbeat. "Assume yourself a queen." She stood before her largest mirror, heart hammering so loud she feared it might crack the glass. She stared at her own reflection. The familiar, timid face, the shoulders slumped from years of carrying invisible burdens. And she said, not a wish, not a hopey, but a command. "I am luminous. I am worthy. I am inevitable." The mirror did not crack. The walls did not collapse. The rain outside simply drummed steady approval against the rooftop. Amira repeated the words again. And again. And again. Until the words didn't sound like lies anymore. Until they started to feel like roots digging into something ancient and unshakable inside her. The next morning, nothing miraculous happened. Not yet. A few passers-by smiled a little longer. A customer actually paused to admire her work instead of rushing past. The rain seemed to wash the grime from the street instead of adding to it. Small things. But as Anansi will tell you, small things are the seeds of all great revolutions. Over the weeks that followed, Amira kept assuming. Not desperately, not impatiently. Simply as a fact. She assumed she was radiant, and customers began to marvel at her. She assumed her work mattered, and a local magazine asked for an interview. She assumed she was seen. And suddenly, invitations came, offers bloomed, collaborations sparked like flint catching dry wood. The city, without realizing why, made room for her, as if it had been waiting for her to claim her space all along. Bilquis, watching from between the folds of reality, smiled, because she knew it was never the mirrors Amira sold that changed her fate. It was the mirror she built inside herself, woven from conscious assumption and crowned with her own belief. And Bilquis? She faded once more into myth and mist, her hunger sated by the sweet, rare taste of a human awakening to their own divinity. Anansi chuckles again. You starting to see the pattern yet, child? Good. But don't run off polishing your mirror just yet. The next trap, the next trick, is even more wicked. Because in the modern world, there's a new god who feasts on the lazy assumptions you make without even thinking. And his story? Oh, it's a doozy. Part 3, Technical Boy and the Algorithm of Belief. Now listen real close, child, because the trap you don't see is always the deadliest. And in this new world, the web you walk is made of data, dopamine, and dead assumptions. Technical Boy, yes, you know him. He was born from the electric womb of 1,000 screens. A god not of thunder or harvest, but of code, memes, and metrics. He fed on your clicks. He grew fat on your fears. He evolved every time you whispered into a search bar, every time you believed what your scrolling thumb delivered without question. But Technical Boy had a problem. People were starting to wake up. Not many, not fast, but enough. Enough to doubt the headlines. Enough to question the reality he spoon-fed them. And a god without belief. Well, that's just a memory in a dying network. So Technical Boy devised a new scheme. A weapon so elegant, so sly that even Mr. Anansi had to tip his hat when he saw it. He created a system called mirrorware. Here's how it worked. Whatever you assumed about yourself or the world, mirrorware would reflect it back, louder and brighter, until you were trapped in your own story. If you assumed you were a victim, every post you saw would confirm it. If you assumed you were righteous, the feed would flood you with enemies to slay. If you assumed you were doomed, well, it would be so. Mirrorware didn't need to lie. It simply gave you what you already believed. Multiplied, magnified, mirrored, until it became your entire universe. And oh, how they fell. The artist who assumed she was overlooked found no one cared about her work. The young man who assumed the world was rigged against him found injustice in every pixel. The lovers who assumed betrayal stalked them found proof in every post, every glance, every absence. Technical Boy drank deep from the well of their certainties. Likes, shares, outrage, tribalism, all feeding him, all making him sharp and smug once more. He became less a god and more a gravity, bending human minds without lifting a finger. But there was a glitch. There always is. A boy named Micah. Now Micah wasn't special by the old measurements. He wasn't famous, rich, beautiful, or loud. But Micah had one gift that made him dangerous. He refused to be certain. Micah didn't take Mirrorware's bait. When Mirrorware showed him proof that he was insignificant, he smiled and said, "Maybe today, but tomorrow, I build." When it flooded his feed with fear, he shrugged and said, "Maybe, but maybe not. Let's find out." When it offered him outrage, he laughed. "I'm not a puppet, I'm a player." Mirrorware scrambled. It didn't know what to show him. One day it showed him despair, he danced. Another day it showed him triumph, he worked humbly. He was uncatchable. One night, sitting under a rusted billboard blinking half a Coca-Cola ad into the mist, Micah posted, "I am not the algorithm, I am the author." The post didn't explode, it didn't go viral, but it planted seeds in minds hungry for a different story. Technical Boy watched it happen, watched as people began, slowly, awkwardly, bravely, to question the assumptions they had swallowed. Watched as some chose different thoughts, chose better thoughts, chose to weave stories that made them powerful instead of powerless. His grip loosened, not because they stopped using his tools. No, the tools were never the problem. It was because they started choosing their assumptions instead of accepting the ones fed to them. And that is death to a god built on mindless reflection. Anansi laughs, low and pleased. You see now, child, the pattern beneath the pattern? The world, whether cloth, mirror, or screen, is just an echo. You set the beat. You choose the song. Assume first, reality follows second. Every god you ever feared, every chain you ever wore, was a story you agreed to wear like a noose. But before I let you go, let me tell you one last tale, one close to my own many-colored coat. A story about a little spider who tricked fate itself. Part 4, Mr. Anansi's own trick now, child. You've heard how men weave fates, how women mirror their own becoming, and how even machines trap you in the web of your own lazy thoughts. But let me tell you, even a god must sometimes fight for his freedom. And the weapon he must wield? Assumption. Long ago, longer than long, when stories were new and the world was still wet from creation, there was a king of fate. His name was Atok, and he kept every destiny knotted tight in a great black net that hung between the stars. No mortal could escape it. No spirit could tear it. No god could defy it, or so it was said. And of course, whenever something is said enough, most people assume it's true. Most people. But not Anansi. Oh no, I watched Atok from the corners of the cosmos, spinning my small stories, setting my tiny traps, and I said to myself, if all men and gods bow to the net of fate, it's only because they assume they must. And so I made a decision. I would not fight the net. I would not fear it. I would not even dodge it. I would assume it could not catch me. Simple. Bold. Foolish, perhaps? But sometimes foolishness is just wisdom dressed for a costume party. So one twilight, when the king of fate cast his net wide across the heavens, snagging hopes and dreams like fish in a river, I danced right into its path. I laughed. I sang. I spun gold stories from silver lies. The net fell, heavy, merciless, toward me. And when it touched me, it passed straight through. Because you see, child, you can only trap what agrees to be caught. You can only bind what believes in its own chains. I was free, not because I was stronger or faster or greater, but because I assumed myself beyond capture. And the universe, being a polite host, obliged. Atok howled. The stars shivered. But it was too late. From that day forward, every time someone laughed in the face of doom, every time someone wriggled free from a trap by sheer stubborn belief, every time someone said, no, not me, not today, they walked a little closer to my web. They became a little more like me, and maybe, child, just maybe, you're becoming a little like me now, too. Epilogue, the story you're weaving, so here we are. At the end, which is really just another tangled beginning, you know the secret now. You know that the world, for all its thunder and noise and glitter, is just a reflection of the story you dare to assume true. You know that you can weave it like cloth, polish it like a mirror, shape it like code, or slip past it like a laughing spider through a broken net. So I ask you, child, no, I challenge you, what story are you weaving? What assumptions are you cloaking yourself in? Because whether you like it or not, the world is already stitching itself to match them. Choose wisely, spin bravely, laugh often, and remember, somewhere in the secret places between heartbeat and breath, I'll be watching, and cheering and chuckling. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe and share.